CJ. Yeah, what we talking about? 94 feet, crossover bodies, dropping J's up. Players this elite, your shots on body blocking halftime. Yeah. We break it down, we gon' call your bluff, it's past time. You recognize, boy, press. We got the heat down in Florida with the keys. Guess we the best. Magic, we flash with them fans listen, won't see the best. Show rise from the airwaves like all stars in them stairways. Local rockin', we not stopping, got hot topics like every day. Them trades hit that deadline. My team chasing the big range, we ball, check that headline. Don't mess it up when you big teams, the only station. Giving y'all that info with that real talk. Don't be trying to contest it, go toe to toe and get wheeled off. We shooting from deeper than that report from the bleachers. If you ain't on your game, then we got something to teach you. Tie your laces up, might get shook up out of them sneakers. That triple threat, bless your eardrum straight out of your speakers. Go from that black top to the hardwood, locker room to that press day. Got the scoop on them contracts, new prospects and best plays. NBA defined by the grind, in between the lines, full court pressing, finessing, read the signs. What we talking about? 94 feet, crossover bodies, dropping J's up. Players this elite, your shots on body blocking halftime. We break it down.
What's up, everybody? This is Thompson with O'ReillyAssociation.com and the O'Reilly Association podcast. And yes, this is the good morning edition, the April Fool's edition of the podcast. So first and foremost, this is not an April Fool's joke. This is actually a brand new podcast. And no, this is not April Fool's new theme song. We actually kind of went old school with this one. Big shout out to our friend Cam James, big friend of the show. Also our friends at Trackaholics. We went back with the old theme now. I think that it's time to go back and kind of put that retro feel on everything. And for those who never listen to the podcast, this is one of the fastest and best podcasts you're going to find for the NBA anywhere across the world. Follow me on Twitter at Danny, the number 3 Thompson, and AroundTheAssociation.com. And so let's talk about the entire weekend in the NBA. I know normally I come up with a column in the morning, but I think this morning is a little bit more different because we're getting closer to the end of the season. We're literally 10 days away from the final tip-off of the season, which will be next Wednesday night. And the playoff races, for the most part, are kind of set. The Western Conference, all 8 teams are completely locked in. The question is the seeding of where all 8 teams are locked in. And we'll get to that in just a second. In the Eastern Conference, this is a little bit more of a Wild West situation. The Washington Wizards have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. So now you're just down to the 5 teams that are competing for 3 spots in the East, with the Brooklyn Nets, Detroit Pistons, Charlotte Hornets, Miami Heat, and Orlando Magic all fighting for really 3 spots in the East. The other 5 spots in the East have already been locked up. Milwaukee, Toronto are pretty much 1 and 2. Philadelphia, Indiana are fighting for 3 and 4 and 5, with Boston being at the 5 spot right now as well too. So let's give you a little bit more in depth. Let's start with the Eastern Conference first. You know, the weekend, the Eastern Conference, it was a very interesting one. Last night, for those who missed it, who didn't stay up late, the Charlotte Hornets, went into Oakland, and in the second part of a road trip that is an interesting road trip that got sent in the first place, because it's kind of hard for a team in the East to go out west, especially this late in the season. Charlotte on Friday night lost to the Los Angeles Lakers, and Kemba Walker's 0 for 28 game. When I say 0 for 28, is that Kemba Walker has never beaten the Charlotte Hornets, beat the LA Lakers or LeBron James ever. Not the Lakers, but LeBron James. He's 0 for 28 against LeBron James now after them, they losing on Friday night. Then last night they went into Oakland and just the Warriors obliterated the Hornets last night. And now the Hornets are in a dangerous situation in the Eastern Conference, because now Charlotte, if you look at the standings, after this loss last night, have officially fallen 3 games behind Miami, and the Hornets have 6 games to play. Charlotte's in danger of missing the playoffs now. It would really take not just a 6-game winning streak. They're going to need a whole bunch of help to get in the playoffs. Good news is that they do play the Orlando Magic into the season, but who knows if that matchup is going to mean anything as of right now. Losing 2 games over the weekend pretty much puts you down a whole game, on top of the fact of Miami winning on Saturday night and Orlando winning Saturday night doesn't make things any better. Speaking of the teams in front of them, the Orlando Magic had a weekend where they went into Indiana on Saturday and beat the Pacers. After struggling on Thursday night against the Pistons, a game where they just didn't have anything going. The Magic Saturday with Aaron Gordon has one of his best games of the season, and not necessarily had to be points. Aaron did everything else in the floor. It was 23 points, 10 rebounds. He had 7 assists. He was pretty much everywhere on the floor. Guys hit shots. The Magic hit 15 3-pointers in the game. Check out more of my game recap on aroundtheassociation.com. But the Magic held serve. They won on the road, and now they play Toronto tonight in Toronto. In a game, we don't know what Raptors team you're going to get. And really, the Magic beat the Raptors back last month. So that's another positive thing the Magic fans can look forward to. And the Magic, I think, were third in the NBA since January 31st. I think they're 18-8 since that day. And it's real funny. I read a tweet from a good friend, Zach Oliver yesterday. I kind of summarized, my thoughts on some of the things that were, even thinking about the Magic. The Magic don't have Mo Bamba. They spent the 6th overall pick on Bamba this year, and, Mo's been out with a stress fracture. And I think this would have been a great, like Zach said, this would have been a great time to have Mo Bamba, in the rotation, especially trying to make a playoff run. But let's be honest, the Magic have been so much better with Khem Birch in the lineup. With Birch taking, the lead big man role off the bench, the Magic have played so much better. You can see much more fluidity. And Birch, a guy who's a free agent this summer, might draw a lot of attention a lot of places because Khem, like Steve Clifford said a couple weeks ago, just does everything, the little things that you don't see on the scoreboard, things you don't see in the stat sheet. He sets screens very well. He's very, very intelligent. He knows where to run. He knows where to grab rebounds. He's a very, very good shot blocker. He protects the paint very well. It's just a really smart basketball player. It's like the Magic the last couple of years have really found these guys, especially in the backup center position, that have done well when given minutes. Look at Dwayne Dedmon down in Atlanta. Before his season ended Sunday, Dedmon was playing a key role for the Hawks. He's scoring, rebounding. He also extended his game out to the 3-point line. But Dedmon came to Orlando with the same type of mentality, defending the rim, rebounding, protecting the paint, giving Nikola Vucevic time off the floor, and he was really solid at it. Even go back into history, look at Martin Gortat under Dwight Howard. So the Magic fans can say, the Magic can look at one thing they've always done is they've developed backup big men, and they've turned into solid players around the league. You don't even count Biyombo because Biyombo was that way before he got here. Biyombo was a solid backup. It's just his salary did not match what you expected from him for that salary. That's the difference. If Biyombo was making half the money that he was making per season, I think you wouldn't have seen much of a kind of a distant thing from Magic fans or even a disconcern or being upset because he's making X amount of dollars. Because he was making $16, $17 million a season, things are a little bit different. Now, on the other side, the Miami Heat, they took care of business over the New York Knicks on Saturday night, in the Dwayne Wade final homecoming game in New York. The Heat right now, they're a half game in front of the Magic. They did not have Justice Winslow. Gordon Dragic came in, and Dragic had a double-double, finally getting back in the starting lineup. I'm not sure where to peg the Heat right now, because if you think about it, two of the three best players of the Heat are coming off the bench. And also two of your highest paid players are coming off the bench, and Dragic and Hassan Whiteside. Those two guys are coming off the bench right now. And even though Dragic got back in the lineup, let's be honest, Winslow has been a difference maker since he's been, shifted to that playmaking lead guard position. He's taken the leap, to me, in my opinion, that Josh Richardson should have taken when all the injuries have happened. Now, Richardson has been solid, but Winslow has stepped his game to a whole new level. And with Dragic being back in the lineup, I see more stability there. And I think Winslow will be great with the second unit. But like I said, with Dragic and Whiteside coming off the bench, it's just an interesting fact that your two best players, or two highest paid players, and two guys that have been part of this Heat team over the last few years, especially key roles, are now coming off the bench. Dwayne Wade was Dwayne Wade, and Dion Waiters. You look at Waiters over the last couple games. Waiters has really, really stepped his game up. He's finally getting healthy. He missed the majority of the first part of the season, coming off the injury that cost him all of last season. But if you look at what Philly Cheese has done the last couple of games, he had 28 against the Knicks on Saturday. On Thursday night, he had 17 and a couple rebounds. But the game before against Orlando, he had 26 points. So Waiters is starting to find his stroke, his shot, and he's looking more and more comfortable on the floor. Like I said, he had the 6 assists on Saturday night for the Knicks, against the Knicks. And even though the Knicks are not a team that, don't have all their weapons or really not playing for much of anything, when you can go out there and, like I said, and the Heat had 26 assists on 50 39 main baskets. That's a third of the time you're on the floor. When he's playmaking, it's making things easier for everybody else. Like I said, Dwayne had 16, Whiteside 17 and 13 in 19 minutes. The Heat right now are positioning themselves to be the team that's going to be the most dangerous of the three teams. It's just Miami's consistency has to be they have to be consistent. Speaking of the consistency, let's talk about the team that's also in front of both of them, and that is the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons had an interesting weekend. If you really want to count Thursday's beginning of the weekend, the Pistons took care of business on Thursday night. They beat the Orlando Magic on Thursday, and then they went in Saturday night at home and they beat the Portland Trailblazers. Now the score is 99-90, but if you really watch the game, the Pistons dominated this game throughout. Portland got the game closed late, but Detroit literally was handing them. It was a slow, ugly game to start the game, but the third quarter, the Pistons woke up and they just literally just pressed and they made turnovers, they made plays, they hit shots, and it was really ready. If you want to take care of Saturday, who didn't have Blake Griffin, Saturday night was good Reggie Jackson. And when I say good Reggie Jackson, is that when Reggie Jackson is playing well and getting other teammates involved and not really looking for a shot as much as normal, the Pistons win games. Jackson, he had 5 assists, 2 turnovers, but the thing is, Reggie had 28 points. They got big contribution from Langston Galloway off the bench. Andre Drummond on the board, especially now with Portland not having Nurkic. And his Cantor is in the starting lineup. Cantor had 20-15, but the problem is Cantor is not that physical presence that Nurkic is, and he has a hard time keeping people off the boards. Drummond literally drilled them all night long. 16 offensive rebounds out of his 19, not giving them second chance opportunities. I think Portland finished that game with I think it was, even though they had 18 offensive boards, the Blazers missed a lot of shots. Blazers shot 38 of 102 in that game. There was so many missed shots. They had chances, but give Detroit a lot of credit. They won at home. Now, Detroit plays a humongous back-to-back. And when I say it's a back-to-back, they play tonight and Wednesday against the Indiana Pacers. Now, with them being literally 5 games behind the Pacers, is not really trying to catch the Pacers. It's really trying to distance themselves from Brooklyn, which we'll talk about in a second, and distance themselves from the rest of the teams in the East so you can get close to that clinched playoff spot. You win both games, you're in the playoffs at this point. You lose both games, now you're in that danger zone line. Indiana needs these games because Indiana's now tied with Detroit, with Boston for 4. I think Boston has a tiebreaker, especially because Boston beat them. They beat them twice. They beat them on Friday night, and then they play again later on this week. Indiana lost both games there the weekend. Give me 1 second, I'll talk about them. But with these 2 games against Indiana, it's a huge thing for both teams. Detroit needs these wins to get the playoffs. Indiana needs these wins to potentially jump up and pass Boston because home court is a very, very important thing right now. Now, the Brooklyn Nets are 39-38. Brooklyn's at 7. They're a half game behind the Pistons. Like I said, we're playing the half game thing. Saturday night, they went in and beat the Boston Celtics. And really, the third quarter was all D'Angelo Russell. It was Russell everywhere on the floor. Russell I think he had 20 in the third quarter. And it's the growing thing for me game by game because the story had came out before the game that Kyrie Irving had been wanting to play in Brooklyn. He's favoring the Nets over the Knicks as far as free agency. And do the Nets really need Kyrie Irving? It's really interesting how the Nets are in one of these situations where they have a 22, 23-year-old kid who's a budding star. He's about to be a free agent and he's going to be commanding Devin Booker type of money. And Devin Booker makes a whole lot of money, 5 years, $158 million. And the Nets are still in a situation where they still can chase a upper level frontline free agent. Can you imagine the Nets if they were to have a Kawhi Leonard and D'Angelo Russell together for the next 5-6 years? That'd be a dangerous team in the East, especially the way the Nets have developed players. The Nets are one of the best developmental teams in the league. Big shout outs to Trey Jelani for winning GM of the year over the G League. They have developed so many guys through that system. And Kenny Atkinson plays a great style. And like I said, Sean Marks has put together a phenomenal staff. But in Brooklyn's case, this week, the Nets have a week where, they play the Bucks on Monday, on Monday night, and the Bucks are really injured. Giannis didn't play Sunday against Atlanta. They have the Raptors on Wednesday. So, the Nets are a team, like I said, they're not playing any team that's not above 500. They had the NBA's toughest schedule, over in the month of April. They play 5 playoff teams in the month of April. They play the Bucks twice. They had the Raptors. They play the Bucks on Saturday and the Bucks on Monday. They play the Raptors and they close the season with Pacers and Heat. So you're playing potentially 5 playoff teams down the stretch. Right now, Brooklyn needs every win possible. Like I said, you want to keep pace with Detroit. You don't want to play Toronto round 1. You'd rather play Philadelphia. I think that's the landing spot for every team in the East. No offense. Everybody wants to play the Sixers. You'd rather play the Sixers than deal with Kawhi Leonard or deal with Giannis in the first round series. Now, speaking of the Pacers, speaking of the first round series, the Pacers, like I said, over the weekend, they lost a back-to-back. They lost to Boston on Friday night on the road and then lost to Orlando on Saturday night at home. The Pacers tonight, like I said, they started back-to-back with Detroit. They're guaranteed no worse than 5th in the Eastern Conference. But 5th puts you in a situation where you're in a first-round series on the road with the Boston Celtics. Winning each of these games down the stretch will more likely solidify you for 4, and 4 is home court. If you're going to play the Boston Celtics, you're going to have to get home court. It is what it is at this point. You do not want to have to play a critical game 5 or a game 7 in Boston. You want to be able to be at home. And really, home is where everything has to be in the Eastern Conference. You look at the standings, look how teams have played compared to home and away. The Pacers are a different team at home. They're 28-10. They were one of the last few teams to suffer their 10th loss at home, and that happened on Saturday night to Orlando. They have to be at home. Boston's a decent road team, but Boston has playoff experience. Indiana, without having your best scoring option, Victor Oladipo, we know he's not coming back. But when you are without weapons like that, you need to have every bit of advantage. And Indiana, like I said, they're tied. They're tied for the spot. These 2 games with Detroit are critical over the next 3 nights. You win those 2 games, and you start taking that driver's seat over because you win those 2 games, you have Boston looming on Friday night. That's the game that everybody, that Pacers fans really need. You're at home. It's going to be national television. If you can win both Piston games and then go into that game against Boston on national TV next Friday night, you got everything in your direction going forward. I think you win those 2 games, and then you win Friday night. You're the 5 seed. You're at home. You can really worry about just keeping guys healthy as you play Nets and Hawks at the end of the season. Philadelphia is more likely locked in the 3. They're 4.5 games ahead of Boston. I don't see Philadelphia dropping that many games. Yes, Joel Embiid is out on Monday. He'll be back on Wednesday. Embiid will miss the next 3 games, just due to load management. Really, in his case, it's just the Sixers are just making sure this guy will be healthy for the playoffs. So don't expect him against the Mavs on Monday night. I really don't expect him back for the Hawks on Wednesday. They play the Bucks on the second end of a back-to-back in Milwaukee. At home on Thursday night. I expect Embiid back for that one. And really, at that point, if you've got the spot locked up, I see really you're then not catching Toronto. You're 4.5 behind Toronto. You're stuck at 3. So there's no reason, no point of even trying to keep or risk Embiid's health anymore. You play him just to make sure he's okay, and then play him sparing minutes in the final 2 games. That way he stays in playoff shape. Rest of the Eastern Conference, Toronto is 3 games behind Milwaukee. With a stretch that Toronto has coming up, like I said, they play Orlando tonight. They have 5 games left in Brooklyn on Wednesday and Charlotte on Friday. Really, realistically, unless the Bucks start slipping games, the Raptors really aren't going to move anywhere. The Raptors are really pretty much locked in 2, like the Bucks locked in 1. So really, it's just about making sure Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, those guys are healthy going into the playoffs. So when you look at the week ahead for the Raptors, really it's if you take care of business on Monday night against the Magic and you take care of the Nets, if the Bucks start to falter, then you start worrying about trying to get home court. The Bucks this week, like I said, they had Giannis with the ankle out yesterday, lost to the Hawks. Before that, the Bucks had won with 5 of their last 6 going into Sunday. And they're a different team without Giannis. They're a completely different team. And you can tell the difference in the team. And they did play defense very well. And really, it's more than just Giannis who was out yesterday. I think they missed 4 starters yesterday. No Brogdon's out. No Eric Bledsoe yesterday. They were missing so many guys and still took the Hawks to the limit yesterday. Like I said, back-to-back with Brooklyn, 2 days off, and then they have to go to Philadelphia, and then they're back for Brooklyn on Saturday again with a back-to-back with Brooklyn and Atlanta before close of the season with an out-of-conference matchup with the Thunder in the final night of the season. Listen, the Bucks win one of these games, they get home court. they take care of the Nets tonight, and I think Giannis should be back in the lineup, they'll clinch themselves a home court advantage. And I think with home court advantage will be crucial, especially playing the Raptors, potentially Eastern Conference Finals, because you'd rather be at Fiserv Arena before going anywhere else. So let's talk about the Western Conference. I know my podcast normally around 15 so minutes. Let's talk about the Western Conference real quick. We'll make, and the Western Conference playoff race a little bit more settled of the teams who are in. It's just where everybody's slotted. So Golden State last night, over the weekend, they took care of business. They beat the Charlotte Hornets. I think they're still scoring as we speak on the Hornets. They're beating 137 to 90. This is right after the Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant incident at the end of the game on Friday night, where they had the game. Durant was fouled, I think, in my opinion, on that 4-point play, was never called. Curry then hits this amazing shot in the corner, starts to celebrate, and then on the ensuing inbound, Karl-Anthony Towns was fouled by Durant with 0.5 seconds left, and the Timberwolves went in overtime by a point. Warriors come home. Warriors just destroy the Hornets last night. The game to watch is Tuesday night, because guess what? The Nuggets and Warriors play in Denver on Tuesday night. This will be for home court advantage. The Warriors are a game up on the Nuggets right now. The Nuggets lost inexplicably last night to the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are a team that was really they're out of the playoff chase. Denver's at home, and inexplicably the Nuggets lost at home to the Washington Wizards 95-90, fresh off after beating the Thunder on the road by 10 on Friday night. The Nuggets cannot lose games like this. If you're going to get home court, you cannot lose games to the Wizards, especially at home. The week for the Nuggets, they have a 4-game week coming up, is not easy, because you go to Golden State on Friday night. You're home for the Blazers and you're home for the Spurs on Wednesday and Friday. You got to go to Portland. So Portland is the back-to-back on Friday, Sunday. Every game in the West counts, especially if you want home court advantage. The Rockets are looming at 2.5 games behind. The Rockets might have every chance to catch the 2 spot. If they catch the 2 spot, that means they get that home court advantage over the Denver Nuggets. Speaking of the Rockets week, the Rockets had a crazy weekend. Saturday night, James Harden with a 50-point triple-double against the Kings. They beat the Nuggets on Friday night, and the Rockets have won 4 of their last 5 games. If you really go back further than that, they won 7 of their last 9 as well too. In that stretch, even going back to the beginning of March, the Rockets have just been lighting teams up since their win on Saturday night against the Warriors back in February. They've only lost to the Warriors by 2 points, lost to the Grizzlies by a point, and then lost to the Bucks. That's all they've lost in the month of March. They lost 3 games in the month of March. They're playing some of the best pace basketball. They play the Kings again on Tuesday with the Clippers on Wednesday in a back-to-back. The only part about it is they play 3 games in 5 nights this week. The third game, 3 games in 4 nights, 3 games in 4 nights. If they can somehow survive those 3 games in 4 nights, I mean, outside the Clippers, it's Knicks and Suns on the weekend, which is Friday, Sunday. Both are at home. The Rockets have every chance of catching the Nuggets. The Nuggets have a tougher week. The Rockets have a weaker week. They're playing 3 teams that are not in the playoffs right now. If the Rockets could win 3 of those 4 games and somehow beat the Clippers, who are surging, the Rockets right now can get themselves right back in the 2 spot, which means you have home court advantage in a second-round series against Denver. Portland is 3 games out of the second spot for Denver, and Portland's week, like I said, Portland has a back-to-back this week. We mentioned earlier against Denver. They play Friday, Sunday. Before then, they play at Minnesota tonight on Monday night, and they play at home for Memphis on Wednesday. Portland has an outside shot of catching this, but they have a good shot of catching Houston. They're only a half game behind Houston. So if they can catch Houston, that means you're at 3 spot. There's a difference. Playing a second round series against the Denver Nuggets is different than playing a second round series against Golden State Warriors, especially when you don't have Nurkic in the post trying to deal with DeMarcus Cousins and the bigger bodies. I take my chance with Denver, of course, over Golden State. Utah is now the second set of teams in that fight for the bottom part of the playoffs, because they're at 5. They're tied with the Clippers, who are surging. The Clippers have won. Even though won the last 2 games, the Clippers have won. What is it? They were on an incredible streak at one point. They've won 8 of their last 9 games. The Clippers are now play the Rockets on Wednesday, the Lakers on Friday. They have 4 games left. Like I said, they're a half game behind, and Utah and the Jazz are 2 games behind the home court advantage spot. If the Jazz, who this week play the Hornets and Suns, they play the Hornets tonight in Utah on Monday night, and they play in Phoenix on Wednesday. If they can somehow get those 2 wins and they can get some help, because the Rockets don't have the easier of the 2 schedules. They have the easier of the schedules down the stretch. But if they can catch Portland, who has a more difficult schedule, hey, look, the Jazz can get home court, and the Jazz at home are a dangerous team at home. Like I said, teams play better at home. The Jazz are way better at home. They're 26-12 at home, and they've always had a great home court advantage, especially in the playoffs. Ask any team that goes into Utah, ask Oklahoma City last year, the playoffs. When you go into Utah, it's not exactly the easiest environment. Clippers, like I said, they've won 8 of the last 9 games. The Clippers have a more of a softer week this week with the Rockets and Lakers. They don't play again until Wednesday, so they catch a Rockets team in the middle of a humongous, like I said, 3-game and 4-night stretch. They had the Lakers on a Friday night at home, which is, be honest, which will be a Lakers home game, and they have the Warriors next Sunday. The Clippers have won the games they had to win. I mean, they won Saturday without Danilo Gallinari, huge game from JaMychal Green. SGA had a humongous scoring game in the first half. And then last night, they with Gallinari back in the lineup, back to being the Clippers. They beat the Grizzlies last night by 17 points at home. They don't play again until Wednesday. So really, by the time they hit the court again, they'll have a better idea of where they're standing in the Western Conference. Spurs and Thunder are fighting for the final playoff spot, fighting for whoever's going to finish 7th and 8th in the West. And really, 7th and 8th's the difference. You got a better chance of beating the Denver Nuggets than you do the Golden State Warriors. I think that's what's more important. Now, the Spurs on Sunday night dropped the game against the Kings, an inexplicable game at home, kind of the same way the Wizards did with the Nuggets. You're supposed to beat the Kings. Now, especially when the Kings don't even have Marvin Bagley because of an illness. You're supposed to win those games. They came out flat. They just could not catch up to the Kings, who outplayed them. They have the Hawks on Tuesday night. The Hawks are a little wounded. No Dwayne Dedmon. And we'll see how much of the Hawks are going to play, especially guys like Trae Young and John Collins. You got to win that game at home, because the next night you have the Denver Nuggets at home. You go to Denver, then you go to Washington and on Friday night. So you play 3 games in 5 nights. 3 games in 4 nights, actually. And those 3 games in 4 nights are always the ones that are always difficult. Like I said, you have to go to Denver and then go to Washington. I'm not worried about the Washington game, but that Denver game on Wednesday night is a game you circle. If the Spurs are going to try and keep pace with the Thunder, you're going to put the Thunder off your case. Those are the games you got to win. Speaking of the Thunder, final team to talk about the playoff chase is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder, they lost 2 games over the weekend. Lost the Nuggets, which at home, which was a tough one, but then they lost to the Mavericks, who didn't even have Luka Doncic on Sunday at home. You cannot lose games like this. The Thunder are now in the 8th spot in the West, and they're looking towards a first-round matchup with the Golden State Warriors, a matchup that I would love to see, but I know Thunder fans think they can beat them, but it's going to be difficult to beat them in a series, especially this early. You got to get away from them in round 1. You got the Lakers on Tuesday at home, Pistons on Friday at home, Timberwolves at Minnesota on Sunday. It really is now the Thunder have to win these 2 games. A home stretch like this, you got to win these final 2 home games. You got to beat the Lakers, who are now wounded. There is no LeBron James the rest of the season. They're playing G League guys. You cannot they're playing G League guys and Kyle Kuzma. They have to win this game. If not a game is more must win for the Thunder, it is definitely Tuesday night at home. You win this game Tuesday night at home, everything changes. Because the Thunder then, like I said, with the Spurs having a 3-game and 4-night period coming up this week, winning that game at home will jumpstart them, because I don't see the Spurs winning games like this, 3-game and 4-night stretch. I don't see them winning all 3 games. The problem with the Thunder is that if you look at the Thunder, of all the playoff teams in the Western Conference, they're the team with the worst home record. That's the sad part. They're 24-14 at home. Everybody else, the Jazz are 26-12, Clippers 25-13. The rest of the teams win at home. And also, if you look at the Thunder, they've lost 3 of their last 10 games. They're 3-7. You can't be 3-7 trying to win home games. You can't. There's just no way. If you're going to try and make the playoffs, make a playoff run, you cannot do those things. So the Thunder have to win these 2 games at home. You got to win those 2 games. If you don't, you're in serious trouble. So we went over everything in the Western Conference, especially the playoffs. Other things that happened over the weekend: Devin Booker is still scoring, and the Suns are still losing. Devin Booker scored 48 Saturday night. He had two other games of 50 this week. He's averaging 52 points a game this week. He's the guy, if you have in fantasy basketball, so basically destroying everything in fantasy. But the sad part is the Nuggets are still bad. I mean, the Suns are still bad. And Devin Booker is still scoring at a high rate. Big shout out to Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards. Like I said, they won a huge game last night in Denver, a game they're not supposed to win. They took care of business. And that's pretty much been the interesting part of the weekend around the NBA. Guys are sitting out games. Like I said, we miss Giannis, we miss Embiid, due to load management. I think Kawhi Leonard was out, and Siakam was out over the weekend. If you're in a situation, especially in fantasy basketball, you're going to have to play those waiver wire games now. Because if your league's a championship like mine is right now, you have to look at the waiver wire because guys are being pulled on a regular basis. Look at the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. They started Sterling Brown yesterday. No offense to those guys who were starting yesterday, Bonzi, Colson, those guys, but they missed a ton of guys in the lineup yesterday. And that's what you're going to see from teams down the stretch, especially the teams that have already kind of locked in, Milwaukee, Toronto. I even think Philadelphia is probably locked in pretty much well. The Western Conference is still a little bit more of an influx situation up the top. Like I said, Golden State's a game over Denver. And really, like I said, with Houston and Portland being in striking distance, Denver, I don't see those guys resting much of anybody. The rest of the West is set. The East, outside of, like I said, Washington, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, and Cleveland, they'll be influxing starting guys, up and down, but their regular starters won't see as many minutes because, again, you don't want guys getting injured down the stretch. So, this has been a great week coming up. I think this is the final 10 days of the season. Like I said, most of the Western Conference is done when it comes to spots. It's now all about seeding. The Eastern Conference is going to be a mess. It's a nightly basis on who's the playoffs, who's not in the playoffs, based on a nightly basis. Like I said, look out for the games tonight. And Orlando plays tonight, and they can get themselves right back in the playoffs with a victory tonight. Detroit and Indiana, like I said, play that stretch where 2 games in 3 nights against each other. So like I said, Celtics fans are paying attention to that, and everybody, like I said, fans of the Nets, Magic, Heat, and Hornets are all paying attention. Charlotte really is on life support right now. Like I said, 3 games out. Just to summarize, Charlotte is 3 games behind the final spot in the East, and with 6 games to go, they're completely on life support right now. They just need to win every game. They need to go on a 6-game winning streak and get, I would say, a ton of help to get in the playoffs. So that was the weekend in the NBA. Follow me at NBADT29. Danny Thompson 3. So it's Danny DANY, the number 3 Thompson on Twitter. Follow RallyAssociation.com for more NBA news, as well as some of the latest updates that we have across the league. There'll be a podcast coming up later on this week. So I know the Final Four is on everybody's mind. And we'll talk about who actually is winning the pool, and we'll give it a little bit more in-depth analysis, in my opinion, on the Final Four and the teams that are involved in the Final Four, because Duke's not in the Final Four. But that's another podcast for the day. So follow me on Twitter, at the website, which is RallyAssociation.com, and the Facebook page, which is Rally Association on Facebook. So we'll catch you guys later on this week. This is Dan Thompson, Rally Association.
Headline, don't mess it up when you big teams, the only station giving y'all that info with that real talk. Don't be trying to contest it, go toe to toe and get wheeled off. We shooting from deeper than that report from the bleachers. If you ain't on your game, then we got something to teach you. Tie your laces up, might get shook up out of them sneakers. That triple threat, bless your eardrum straight out of your speakers. Go from that black top to the hardwood, locker room to that press day. Got the scoop on them contracts, new prospects and best plays. NBA defined by the grind, in between the lines, full court pressing, finessing, read the signs. What we talking about? 94 feet, crossover bodies dropping J's up. Players this elite, your shots on body block at halftime. We break it down, we gon' call your bluff, it's past time. You recognize court.